Just for a second, try to imagine a world with no sound at all. Just profound, absolute stillness. Now imagine that out of that complete silence comes a voice so powerful, so incredible, it just captivates an entire nation. Well, that's the story of Elizabeth Greenfield. And the thing that made her voice so famous, so impossible, she had never ever heard a single note of music in her entire life.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the big question, because this is what baffled everyone back in the mid-19th century. How is that even possible? And the answer? Well, it's not some simple, happy story about a miracle. It's way more complex, and honestly, it's way more chilling.
And that quote right there, yeah, that starts to hint at the real story. This wasn't just about overcoming a disability. It was about incredible ingenuity, sure, but also about desperation and a calculated experiment performed on a living, breathing human being. The story of this impossible voice is absolutely not what it seems. To really understand the performance, the big show, we've got to go all the way back to the very beginning. Back to a world where Elizabeth's silence was first seen not as a tragedy, but as something else entirely. So, picture this, a sprawling Maryland plantation. For young Elizabeth, the world was like a silent movie. The sounds of other kids playing, the sharp crack of a whip, the clang of a dinner bell, none of it ever reached her. And a doctor's diagnosis made it official and blunt. She was deaf completely. And right here, this is where the story takes a sharp turn. To most people, Elizabeth was just a poor, unfortunate thing. But to her owner, a very shrewd woman named Mrs. Hathaway, the child's strange, deep humming wasn't just some random noise. See, when she placed a hand on Elizabeth's chest, she felt these powerful vibrations. And in that moment, she saw dollar signs. She saw a golden opportunity, a spectacle the world would pay a fortune to see. So with this idea in her head, Mrs. Hathaway brings in a key player, the brilliant, but kind of controversial Dr. Cornelius Webb. And his arrival? That kicks off a meticulous and, frankly, unsettling experiment to craft a miracle out of pure silence. So the secret sauce behind this whole miracle wasn't magic at all. It was science. It was something called bone conduction. The idea is, while Elizabeth's ears couldn't pick up sound from the air, Dr. Webb had a hunch that she could perceive sound as vibrations, vibrations transmitted directly through the bones in her body. And he was right. Through all these tests with things like tuning forks and resonant boxes, Webb realized something amazing. Elizabeth's entire body was like a finely tuned instrument. She couldn't hear a melody, no, but she could feel it. She could feel its structure, the way it rises and falls. She could feel the very architecture of the music through the vibrations in her bones. This discovery led to this unbelievably relentless training method. Webb would make Elizabeth put her hands on a piano to feel the vibration of a single note. Then, he'd have her feel his throat as he sang that same note. And finally, he'd guide her hands to her own throat, training her to replicate that exact same internal feeling. She learned to match these sensations with the visual cues of his lips moving. Slowly, painstakingly, shaping raw sounds into these soaring operatic arias. And this right here, this is the chilling duality of the whole thing. To the public, Elizabeth was a miracle, a deaf girl blessed by God himself with a voice from heaven. But the reality? It was a carefully guarded secret, a scientific phenomenon exploited through years and years of grueling training, all hidden behind this wall of absolute secrecy. Okay, so they've perfected the product, the miracle. Now it's time to take the show on the road. This next part of the story is all about creating a legend, manufacturing a star, and the immense, crushing pressure of maintaining an impossible lie. And her rise to fame was, it was explosive. After this jaw-dropping debut in Philadelphia, the press gave her a nickname that stuck, the Silent Nightingale. She became an overnight sensation. We're talking sold-out concert halls from New York to Boston to D.C. Everybody wanted to see the miracle for themselves, this impossible voice born from total silence. But you know how it is. When you get that famous, people start looking closer. A skeptical doctor, a guy named Alistair Finch, he noticed how she never even flinched at loud noises, but she followed the conductor's every move with this unnerving intensity. An investigative journalist starts digging into her past. And then, during one show, a stage light flickered, and she hesitated. Just a tiny mistake, but it suggested she was relying on sight, not sound. The pressure was starting to crack the whole illusion. So all of this, all the scrutiny, all these little cracks, it's all leading to one single climactic night back in Philadelphia. The skeptics are closing in, and they orchestrate one final test. This is it. This is the moment the entire illusion would either be cemented as fact or just shattered into a million pieces. The trap they set was actually pretty simple, but totally brilliant. The skeptics arranged for this notoriously eccentric conductor, a Monsieur Dubois, to lead the orchestra in a surprise piece, something complex, something improvisational, something she could not possibly have rehearsed by feeling the vibrations beforehand. As soon as that unfamiliar music started, you could just see the flicker of panic in her eyes. She couldn't feel the pattern. Her only hope was to desperately watch Dubois trying to mimic his gestures, trying to guess the chaotic shifts in the music. For the first time ever, her voice sounded hesitant, strained. And then he did it, the devastating climax. As the music swelled to a massive crescendo, Dubois, with this big theatrical flourish, brought his baton crashing down, and the entire orchestra just fell completely silent. But Elizabeth, caught up in the performance, unable to hear the music just stop, she kept singing. Her powerful, soaring voice carried on for a few extra bars, echoing into a concert hall that had gone utterly, profoundly still. The mistake was undeniable. The illusion was shattered. And in that moment of shocked silence, Dr. Finch stood up and explained the truth to the stunned audience. But he didn't call her a fraud. Instead, he revealed the science. He demystified the miracle, explaining that her incredible talent wasn't some divine gift, but an extraordinary and very real human adaptation. You can imagine the scandal was immense. But what happened next is maybe the most powerful part of Elizabeth's story. Because out of the ashes of this great deception, she began a journey to find her own voice, on her own terms. And this is where her whole identity was reborn. She wasn't the silent nightingale anymore, this manufactured miracle. She became Elizabeth the deaf singer. The story shifted from her being an exploited instrument to being an authentic artist, a symbol not of a miracle from God, but of incredible human resilience. I mean, her entire life's arc is just so powerful. She goes from being this manipulated child to having the lie unmasked in front of the world, and then finally to her rebirth. She chose to keep singing, but now she was in control. She started educating audiences about her unique way of experiencing music. So in the end, her true legacy wasn't the illusion they sold to the world. It was the reality of her own quiet strength. Her story became this incredible testament to the adaptability of the human body and spirit, an echo in the silence that honestly resonates way more deeply than the manufactured myth ever could. And that just leaves us with this really tough question, doesn't it? On one hand, Dr. Webb and Mrs. Hathaway gave her a life far beyond slavery, a way to share this extraordinary gift. But they did it through control, deception, and for their own profit. It really forces you to ask, where is that line between helping someone achieve the impossible and just exploiting them for the miracle? It's something to think about.